Greetings, dear subscribers and casual listeners of my channel. Ask any Harry Potter fan how they feel about the movies, and you'll probably hear something like, well, they're okay, I guess. The books are always better, that's a truth few would dare to argue with. But let's be honest, the movies did get a few things spectacularly right. For one, they gave us versions of characters that, in some ways, even outshone their original book counterparts. Today, I'll walk you through a heroes and villains who were completely transformed by the magic of cinema. Ready? Let's go. Number 1. Hermione Granger. In the books, Hermione is the brightest witch of her age, a brilliant know-it-all with a kind heart. But let's not sugarcoat it. She had a reputation for being a bit of a nag. And her looks, let's just say frizzy hair and oversized front teeth, don't exactly scream movie star. But in the films, Hermione turned into something of a modern-day icon. Beautiful, confident, still genius-level smart, but now more composed, more socially polished. Emma Watson turned her into the face of a generation. Even fans who once found book Hermione annoying suddenly adored her. Though, to be fair, some did complain she became too perfect, a little too polished, with her rough edges all smoothed out. Number 2. Percy Weasley. Book Percy is a total stickler for rules, obsessed with climbing the ministry ladder, even at the cost of family ties. He betrays the Weasleys in the name of order and becomes a walking emblem of cold, bureaucratic ambition. By Book 5, many readers couldn't stand him. In the films, where was Percy again? His role was so trimmed down, he basically became just another prefect. The family feud? Gone, his moral dilemma barely hinted at, and just like that, film Percy came across as far more likable, mostly because we never really got to know him. Number 3. Amos Digory. On the page, Amos is a proud father who never misses a chance to brag about his son Cedric. He can be blunt, even a bit rude, especially toward Harry. And he's very clear in his belief Cedric is the rightful champion in the Triwizard Tournament. But on screen, he's a different man entirely. Warm, kind, genuinely friendly with Harry and the Weasleys. No arrogance, no boasting, just a proud dad, without the toxicity. It's almost as if the filmmakers reimagined him as the ideal father figure, one that perhaps J.K. Rowling never meant him to be. Number 4. Sirius Black. On film, Sirius is the godfather everyone dreams of, charismatic, brave, and endlessly lovable. From the moment he appears, viewers are drawn to him, and Gary Oldman's performance cements his place as one of the franchise's most beloved characters. But in the books, Sirius is more complex. He's a man with deep scars from a dark past, who doesn't always act like an adult. He's jealous, especially of Molly Weasley, and at times treats Harry not as a person, but as a replacement for lost friends. His impulsiveness and selfish streaks make him far from perfect. The films, however, brush those flaws under the rug, and in doing so, create a nearly flawless version of him. Number 5. Draco Malfoy. In the books, Draco comes off as little more than a schoolyard bully with a superiority complex. He's cruel to Hermione, sneers at Ron, and is constantly antagonizing Harry. Sympathy? Not much to be found. But the films gave him depth. Especially in the later movies, Tom Felton brings out Draco's inner conflict, fear, confusion, and an unwillingness to become the monster he's being groomed to be. This Draco feels trapped in a world he never truly believed in, and can't escape. In the books, we mostly see him through Harry's biased perspective. It's only near the end that we begin to glimpse the tragedy behind the sneer. Number 6. Narcissa Malfoy. Narcissa Malfoy barely spoke in the books, but when she did, it was with icy grace. She was a shadow behind Lucius, a mother to Draco, and little more. Her most important act, lying to Voldemort about Harry's death, happened in silence. Even in that moment, Rowling gives us only a glimpse of her thoughts. "Is Draco alive?" she whispers, and when Harry nods, she makes her decision. But we never truly feel her inner world. The film changes that in one breathtaking scene. Helena Bonham Carter steps back, and Helen McCrory steps forward. Narcissa walks toward Harry's still body, pale and rigid. She leans close, eyes flicking to Voldemort, then to the boy. Her voice is barely a breath. Is he alive? Is my son still in the castle? When Harry answers yes, her entire face shifts. 1,000 emotions in a single glance. Then she turns. He's dead. The line cuts through the forest like a dagger, but it's not loyalty, it's defiance. For the first time, Narcissa controls the fate of the war. Number 7, Minerva McGonagall. Professor Minerva McGonagall was always respected. In the books, she upheld every rule in the Hogwarts handbook. Stern, no-nonsense, fiercely loyal to Dumbledore. She cared, but never showed it too much. There were few emotional outbursts. Her most iconic book moment might be when she defends Harry during Umbridge's reign. Potter has talent, she says, clipped and cold. That was her way of showing love, quiet, measured, powerful. But even so, her role often stayed in the background. The films changed that. Dame Maggie Smith turned McGonagall into a cinematic icon. Her delivery was razor-sharp, her presence magnetic. She wasn't just a strict teacher, she was a commander. In Deathly Hallows Part 2, she strides into the Great Hall, casts a spell that animates the Stone Knights, and says with a twinkle in her eye, "I've always wanted to use that spell." The audience erupted. It was the perfect balance. Humour, elegance, and raw, magical force. In the same film, her duel with Severus Snape becomes one of the most visually stunning scenes in the entire series. Sparks fly, her eyes blaze, and for the first time she's not just protecting rules, she's protecting home. Number 8, Ginny Weasley. In the books, Ginny Weasley spends too much time in the shadows. At first, she's just Ron's little sister, quiet, nervous, known mostly for her schoolgirl crush on Harry and the disaster with Tom Riddle's diary. It takes until Order of the Phoenix for her voice to sharpen, for her fire to flicker through. She tells Harry off, joins Dumbledore's army, but even then her rise feels rushed, sudden, as if we missed something in between. The films filled in those gaps. From her very first confident moment on the Quidditch pitch to the bold way she steps into battle, Ginny is shown as strong from the start. Bonnie Wright plays her with quiet force. She's not loud, but she never fades. In Half-Blood Prince, she stands beside Harry, ready to fight, wand drawn. In Deathly Hallows, she's in the thick of the battle for Hogwarts, not because she's part of the Golden Trio, but because she refuses to be left behind. Even when the love story falters, her strength holds. Their romance in the films may feel underdeveloped, but Ginny's identity never depends on it. She's not defined by Harry. She fights for her family, for her school, for the right side. In Order of the Phoenix, when Harry asks why she's so good at the Bat-Bogey Hex, she shrugs, "It's all in the wrist." That line isn't in the movie, but Bonnie Wright's smirk says it anyway. The films didn't just polish Ginny, they gave her purpose. They let her stand tall, wand in hand, beside heroes and legends. In the books, she becomes strong. In the films, she already is. Number 9, Neville Longbottom. Neville Longbottom began as the boy who lost his toad, the one who forgot passwords, melted cauldrons, and always stood a few steps behind Harry and Hermione. In the Sorcerer's Stone, he's clumsy and frightened, but kind. Even Dumbledore calls his bravery a different kind. But for most of the books, Neville is the comic relief, the awkward one, the student no one expects anything from. Then came the films, and with them, the transformation. By Deathly Hallows, Part 2, Neville isn't the timid boy hiding behind others. He's leading the fight. He stands bloody, defiant, in the courtyard of Hogwarts, and calls Voldemort out. "It doesn't matter that Harry's gone," he shouts. "People die every day. Friends, family. Yeah, we lost Harry tonight, but he's still with us, in here." It's a speech that turns the tide, not just of the battle, but of Neville's entire arc. Matthew Lewis didn't just play Neville, he became him. In the early films, Lewis wore fake teeth and padding to match Neville's awkwardness. By the end, he needed neither. The padding came off, the voice deepened, and Neville stepped forward, not because he was chosen, but because he chose to fight. That choice made him a hero, not a sidekick, not an accident, a warrior. The sword of Gryffindor doesn't appear for the weak. It presents itself to those who are truly brave. When Neville pulls it from the sorting hat and slices through Nagini, it isn't luck. It's destiny earned through courage. That moment was built across all 8 films. It was the payoff to years of watching him grow. Quietly, painfully, beautifully. In the books, Neville surprises us. In the films, he inspires us. He is living proof that courage doesn't always shout. Sometimes it stumbles, sometimes it forgets passwords, but when it's needed most, it rises. Number 10, Lucius Malfoy. Lucius Malfoy in the books stands tall with his silver cane and pure blood pride. He sneers at Dumbledore, manipulates the ministry, and walks with the air of someone who believes the world still belongs to his kind, cold, calculated, and arrogant. Yet beyond the polished exterior, Rowling gives us little depth. He's a shadow behind Draco, a mouthpiece for old values, a symbol, not a man. But in the films, Jason Isaacs cracks the shell open. His Lucius begins with the same sharp arrogance, but slowly we watch him unravel. The moment Voldemort returns, everything shifts, the confidence fades, fear creeps in. In The Half-Blood Prince, Lucius is no longer at the table. He's in Azkaban, disgraced. When he reappears in the Deathly Hallows, his eyes are hollow, his voice broken. He doesn't speak like a man in control. He whispers like a man trying to survive. In Malfoy Manor, Voldemort takes his wand. That one act says everything. Lucius flinches. He doesn't resist. His power, his pride, gone. Narcissa pleads. Draco hesitates, but Lucius only watches, powerless. Jason Isaacs lets us feel the weight of a man who thought he had everything, only to lose it piece by piece. There's a moment of silent panic when Voldemort hugs Draco. Lucius wants to reach out, but fear keeps him still. His downfall isn't loud, it's slow, quiet, painful. By the Battle of Hogwarts, Lucius isn't fighting, he's looking for his son. The man who once boasted about bloodlines now runs through a battlefield just to find family. He leaves the war behind. That's not redemption, but it is human. The films took Lucius from a flat villain to a tragic figure. Not noble, not brave, but real. And in doing so, they gave us a warning dressed in velvet robes. Arrogance shatters, and fear finds everyone eventually. Number 11. Arthur Weasley. Arthur Weasley has always been the beating heart of the Burrow. In the books, he's lovable, fascinated by plugs and rubber ducks, asking Harry, what exactly is the function of a rubber duck? But sometimes he fades into the background. He's kind, yes, gentle, absolutely, but not always the one who stands tall in moments of danger. In the chaos of war, Arthur often feels like a quiet bystander, watching the storm rather than walking through it. The films changed that. They gave Arthur a stronger spine without losing his softness. Actor Mark Williams played him not just as a wizard amused by Muggle inventions, but as a devoted father and brave Order member. In Order of the Phoenix, he patrols the Ministry, helps guard the prophecy, and fights to protect Harry like his own son. When he's attacked by Nagini, the scene is terrifying, but it also proves something. Arthur is in the fight, fully, willingly, and he doesn't stop. In Deathly Hallows Part 2, Arthur Weasley is there, wand raised, battling alongside his children. He's no longer just the sweet man who tinkers with toasters. He's a warrior when it counts. The films let us see that side of him, gave him weight, made him more than comic relief. In one quiet moment during Bill and Fleur's wedding, Arthur simply looks at his sons, Ron, Fred, George, with pride and worry. No words are needed. That look says everything. Mark Williams brought a warmth that couldn't be written. He made Arthur feel like a man you'd want as your own father, calm in a crisis, curious about the world, and deeply moral. There's a moment when Arthur tells Harry, "Never trust anything that can think for itself if you can't see where it keeps its brain." The film version delivers that line not with fear, but with wisdom. It sticks. Number 12, Sybill Trelawney. Professor Sybill Trelawney was never taken seriously at Hogwarts. Students rolled their eyes at her misty voice and dramatic predictions. Even the author treated her as a caricature of mystical nonsense. In The Prisoner of Azkaban, Trelawney greets Harry with a whispered warning, "You have the Grim." It was meant to sound ominous, but came off as absurd. Hermione famously dismissed her classes as a waste of time, and the reader was encouraged to agree. Trelawney's classroom, filled with incense and velvet cushions, felt more like a stage than a place of study. But then came the films. And Emma Thompson. With her huge glasses, fluttering hands, and trance-like voice, she gave Trelawney unexpected depth. The character was still eccentric, but no longer ridiculous. There was something sad in her, something lonely. In The Order of the Phoenix, when Dolores Umbridge publicly humiliates Trelawney and throws her out of the castle, Thompson doesn't speak. She trembles, her eyes are wide with fear. She clutches her shawl like it's armor. That silence said more than any line in the book ever did. The film made it clear. Trelawney was a woman trying to protect the only place that gave her meaning. In the book, this moment is brief, distant. Dumbledore intervenes, yes, but Sybill fades back into the background. In the film, she breaks the viewer's heart. We suddenly care, not because of what she teaches, but because of who she is. Her pain becomes real. The laughter stops. And that is where the adaptation succeeds. Emma Thompson gave Sybill Trelawney something the books never quite managed: humanity. Her performance balanced the fine line between comedy and tragedy. She made the divination professor unforgettable, not because of her predictions, but because of her vulnerability. The viewer leaves not mocking her, but defending her, a fortune-teller no one believed in, who, for a few quiet moments, made everyone believe. Number 13. Luna Lovegood. In the world of Harry Potter, where heroes often carry swords in the shape of wands and destinies are carved by choices made in shadow and light, few characters shimmer with the quiet magic of Luna Lovegood. From her very first appearance on the Hogwarts Express in Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix, Luna was a disruption, not of conflict, but of perception. She entered not as a warrior, nor a villain, but as a question mark in human form, dreamy, barefoot, reading the Quibbler upside down and talking about creatures no one else believed in. Most readers, like Harry himself, didn't quite know what to make of her. "You're just as sane as I am," she told Harry, with a beatific smile after he admitted he could see Thestrals too. That moment, strangely, was when Luna began to make sense, not by being logical, but by revealing how logic alone could not grasp the deeper truths of the wizarding world. Her belief in the impossible, her comfort with being misunderstood, and her unwavering kindness turned her into a spiritual compass for a world in chaos. In the books, Luna's peculiarity is treated with a mix of affection and mockery by other characters. Even her nickname, Loony Lovegood, is whispered behind her back, painted on her possessions in graffiti, and thrown at her as a social label she never protests. She wears radish earrings, believes in the Rotfang conspiracy, and claims Nargles steal things. Yet Luna never seems embarrassed. Her oddities are her strength. They shield her from conformity and peer pressure, allowing her to stand firm in her identity. There's a moment in Half-Blood Prince that encapsulates this. When Luna is invited by Harry to Slughorn's Christmas party, the gesture is not merely one of kindness, it's an acknowledgement. "People expect you to have cooler friends than Luna," Hermione tells him. But Harry shrugs it off. "She's great," he says, simply. And indeed she is. Dressed in spangled silver robes and looking like a Christmas tree, Luna becomes one of the few students who treats Harry not as the chosen one, but as a friend, a real person. This quality of seeing through the noise and into the heart of things is what defines Luna. She doesn't just believe in invisible creatures, she believes in invisible parts of people, their grief, their fears, their loneliness. In Order of the Phoenix, she is the only one who truly comforts Harry after Sirius's death. Things we lose have a way of coming back to us in the end, if not always in the way we expect. That line, offered with her usual calm certainty, is more healing than any potion or spell. It doesn't offer false hope, but a quiet assurance that life continues, and that there is meaning even in loss. Evanna Lynch's portrayal of Luna in the films elevated this nuance to something transcendent. Her casting was not a decision, it was a discovery. Chosen from thousands of auditioning girls, Evanna was not an actress trying to become Luna. She already was. J.K. Rowling herself admitted that Evanna's embodiment of the character was eerily accurate, saying in interviews that she became a kind of ambassador for Luna's inner world. There's an almost magical stillness to Evanna's performance. She walks through scenes as though she's on a slightly different frequency, yet never feels out of place. Her airy voice, wide-eyed gaze, and subtle expressions communicate a wisdom that is not loud, but undeniable. When she speaks, people stop to listen, not because she demands attention, but because she quietly earns it. In the Battle of Hogwarts, Luna does not fight with rage or vengeance. She fights with purpose. She stands beside Harry, Neville, and Ginny as they form Dumbledore's army, not just as a soldier, but as a believer. Her loyalty to her friends is unwavering. When Harry needs to reach Ravenclaw Tower, it is Luna who guides him. She tells him about the lost diadem of Rowena Ravenclaw, not as a strategic tip, but as a piece of history she reveres. "You're just as sane as I am," she repeats years later, but by then the world has caught up to her sanity. It's worth noting that Luna's bravery is not brash. She does not seek the spotlight. She is not afraid of being mocked, but she is not trying to provoke anyone either. Her strength lies in her peace. When the Carrows take over Hogwarts in the final book, Luna becomes a prisoner, kidnapped and held in Malfoy Manor. She endures it with grace, never letting her captors see fear. When Harry, Ron, and Hermione find her there, she greets them with serene joy, as if they had just arrived for tea. Her time at Shell Cottage is brief, but impactful. She sketches on the walls, talks kindly to Griphook the Goblin, and maintains a gentle sense of wonder, even as the world falls apart. That ability to find beauty in ashes is perhaps Luna's greatest magic. She sees light where others see none, and that makes her indispensable. Many fans initially dismissed Luna as comic relief. Her first scenes seem designed to amuse: the upside-down magazine, the butterbeer cork necklace, the dreamy interjections. But over time, Luna reveals herself to be a mirror. She reflects the discomforts of those around her. Those who laugh at her often do so out of confusion or insecurity. Those who listen find themselves changed. There's a heartbreaking undertone to Luna's loneliness. Her mother died when she was 9, killed by an experimental spell gone wrong. Luna witnessed it. In Order of the Phoenix, she tells Harry about it with soft honesty. "It was rather horrible," she says, "but I still have Dad." That loss shaped her, but did not harden her. Instead, it made her more attuned to the losses of others. She connects with Harry not through words, but understanding. Number 14. Lavender Brown. Of all the side characters in Harry Potter, few have undergone as dramatic a transformation between page and screen as Lavender Brown. In the books, she is largely remembered as a caricature, silly, frivolous, and occasionally grating, particularly in Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince. She is often the butt of the joke, never quite treated seriously, even when tragedy eventually finds her. But in the films, something unexpected happens. Lavender becomes, against all odds, one of the most memorable supporting characters in the 6th installment. Not because her story changed, but because her portrayal made it sparkle. J.K. Rowling first introduces Lavender as one of the many Gryffindor girls in Harry's year, but for a long time she blends into the background. Alongside Parvati Patil, she is often found gossiping or fussing over divination, a subject taken seriously by very few. Lavender's most significant early moment comes in Prisoner of Azkaban, when she mourns the death of her pet rabbit Binky. She weeps inconsolably, convinced of Trelawney's powers because the professor had predicted a great loss that morning. Ron finds her reaction ridiculous, scoffing at the idea that a rabbit's death counts as a significant prophecy. Lavender's grief, however, is sincere, though exaggerated, and marks her as someone who feels deeply, even if she expresses it melodramatically. But it's in The Half-Blood Prince that Lavender truly steps into the spotlight. Her relationship with Ron Weasley becomes one of the key secondary storylines, serving as both comic relief and emotional fuel for Hermione Granger's jealousy. One, as she coos affectionately, becomes a household nickname among fans. Rowling writes her scenes with such over-the-top romanticism that it borders on satire. Lavender clings to Ron in the Gryffindor common room, giggling and sighing in ways that embarrass him and irritate Hermione. "She's got this really annoying laugh," Hermione notes acidly, and it's hard not to agree. One of the most memorable scenes in the book is Ron's hospitalization after being poisoned. Lavender bursts into the hospital wing, only to find Hermione already there, holding Ron's hand. What follows is a brilliant moment of dramatic tension. Lavender is crushed not just because of the betrayal she perceives, but because her fantasy shatters. In her eyes, she was Ron's true love, and the reality that he may not have felt the same way hits her hard. "I suppose he's told you he loves you?" Hermione asks her coldly. Lavender storms off, her heartbreak loud and theatrical, but somehow still sad. In the books, Lavender's character rarely rises above this level of teenage infatuation and jealousy. Readers found her annoying, perhaps because she embodied every worst stereotype of a teenage girl in love: clingy, dramatic, and completely unaware of others' discomfort. Rowling never quite lets her grow beyond that. Even her fate is left somewhat ambiguous. In the Battle of Hogwarts, she is attacked by Fenrir Greyback, described as feebly stirring afterward. It's unclear whether she survives. She vanishes into a haze of war, her story unfinished. But in the film adaptation of The Half-Blood Prince, Lavender Brown takes on a new life. Portrayed by Jessie Cave, she becomes far more than a mere annoyance. Her performance is vibrant, exaggerated, and irresistibly funny. Jessie's Lavender is not just love-struck, she's a whirlwind of teen romance energy, with wide eyes, high-pitched squeals, and an obsessive intensity that turns every scene into comic gold. She doodles Lavender +11 in hearts. She kisses Ron with such ferocity that it leaves Harry and Hermione in stunned silence. And when Ron mutters Hermione's name under the influence of love potion or delirium, Lavender's reaction is nothing short of a cinematic meltdown. One of the film's most brilliant inventions is the scene where Lavender blows on the glass window of the Hogwarts Express to draw a heart around Ron's face. It's a small detail, but it captures everything about her character: romantic, obsessive, and unaware of how intense she seems. This wasn't in the books, but it works perfectly on screen. The image is funny, sad, and oddly endearing. We've all known someone like Lavender, and in Jessie Cave's hands, she becomes more than a punchline. The chemistry, or lack thereof, between Lavender and Ron is milked for all its comedic potential. Rupert Grint's expressions do most of the heavy lifting. He cringes, sweats, and stammers, clearly overwhelmed by Lavender's affections. The awkwardness is delicious. Hermione watches from the sidelines, her pain obvious, but the film never lets it get too dark. Lavender, in her own oblivious way, is just as much a victim of teenage emotions as anyone else. In this way, the films elevate Lavender to a key player in the emotional landscape of the story. She's no longer just a distraction for Ron. She's a catalyst for Hermione's growth. Through Lavender, Hermione confronts jealousy, heartbreak, and the realization that Ron matters to her more than she's willing to admit. The love triangle becomes a mirror of teenage experience, raw and real beneath the comedy. Even at her most absurd, Lavender's sincerity shines through. She really does love Ron, or at least she believes she does. There's something honest about that, something painful in how completely she gives herself to the fantasy. And when it all comes crashing down, we can't help but feel a twinge of sympathy. Jessie Cave plays the breakup with such wounded pride that Lavender's heartbreak feels real. Interestingly, Lavender's casting sparked conversation off-screen as well. Initially played by a black actress in the earlier films, Lavender was recast when her role expanded in The Half-Blood Prince. The decision drew criticism, with fans pointing out the troubling implications of replacing a character of colour once she became more prominent. While Jessie Cave's performance is undeniably excellent, the casting controversy remains a stain on the adaptation's legacy. Number 15, Argus Filch. Argus Filch's shadowy figure has haunted the stone corridors of Hogwarts since the first pages of Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, where his name emerges not with curiosity, but with dread. Described as the cantankerous caretaker with a perpetual scowl, Filch seemed to be carved from the very same cold stone as the castle walls. J.K. Rowling painted him as the ultimate adversary to mischief, an enemy of muddy boots, whispering voices, and especially of rule-breaking students. He was a squib, the caretaker of Hogwarts, and a man who took a vindictive pleasure in catching students out of bounds. His role at first glance seemed simple, the grim warden whose greatest pleasure came from doling out punishments. Yet within this bitter shell there were cracks filled with longing, envy, and pain. In Chamber of Secrets, when Harry stumbles upon Filch's correspondence from Quickspell, a correspondence course for magic beginners, the reader is offered a rare glimpse into the soul of the man. The letter begins, "Dear Mr. Filch, we are pleased to inform you that you have been accepted at the Quickspell correspondence course for beginner witches and wizards." A line that exposes Filch's secret shame. He was a squib, born to magical parents but with no magic himself. It is in this moment that Filch becomes more than a grumpy janitor. He becomes a man burdened by the bitterness of exclusion, living each day surrounded by children gifted with what he yearned for and could never have. His fury, then, is not senseless. It is rooted in rejection. Filch's disdain for students isn't merely a hatred for noise or chaos, it's envy in disguise. Every spell cast, every charm practiced is a reminder of what he lacks. His constant threats of hanging students by their thumbs or chaining them in the dungeons seem grotesque, yet they are barks from a dog who has been caged his entire life in a world that does not welcome him. He clings to his power over rules because it is the only power Hogwarts permits him. In Order of the Phoenix, Filch finds new purpose under Dolores Umbridge's reign. With a gleam in his eyes, he assists in putting up the endless stream of decrees. Rowling writes, Filch had never looked happier in his life. It's a chilling observation. The man who once watched from the sidelines is finally given a taste of authority, and he drinks deeply. It's not that Filch is loyal to Umbridge, he is loyal to the idea of order, of control. Her regime allows him to matter. His bitter joy in helping Umbridge is tragic, not because it shows malice, but because it exposes how starved he is for validation. And yet the books never allow us to fully hate Filch. We might fear him, mock him, even pity him, but we never see him as evil. He is not a Death Eater, nor a schemer. He is a man whose entire life has been built around surviving humiliation. His closest companion, Miss Norris, a cat with piercing eyes, seems to be his only confidant. Her presence in the books is nearly spectral. She appears where students aren't supposed to be, always alert, always reporting back. But more importantly, she is the only creature Filch trusts. When she is petrified in Chamber of Secrets, Filch's reaction is one of genuine heartbreak. My cat, what's happened to Mrs. Norris?" he shrieks, voice quivering. "This is no act. This is a man broken, robbed of his sole companion." David Bradley's portrayal in the films builds upon this complexity and carves something unforgettable. From his first appearance, Bradley's Filch is a masterstroke of physical storytelling. The hunched posture, the limping gait, the gleam in his eye, it all blends to create a figure both pitiful and dangerous. He doesn't just play Filch as a grump, he embodies a man eroded by years of resentment. And yet, in the midst of his torment, Bradley injects a note of dark comedy. His mutterings, his awkward scurrying, and that unforgettable grimace when chasing students down the hall all make him feel absurd and real at once. One of the most iconic moments in the films that never occurred in the books is during Deathly Hallows. Part 2. As the battle for Hogwarts begins, the camera pans across the chaos, spells flying, rubble crashing, and then we see him, Argus Filch, running down a hallway with a tiny cannon cradled in his arms. The image is both ridiculous and strangely heroic. There's something almost poetic in that absurdity. A man who was never a wizard, who was mocked and sidelined his whole life, now charges into battle alongside the very students he once threatened. He may be powerless, but he will still fight. It is this duality, comic and tragic, that makes Bradley's Filch unforgettable. He is more than just a background character. He is a symbol of all those who live on the margins of a magical society. Unlike Hagrid, who embraces his outsider status with love and loyalty, Filch is consumed by his bitterness. But both are reminders that magic, in Rowling's world, doesn't always bring happiness, and the absence of magic doesn't always mean villainy. Bradley's nuanced performance also draws attention to the physicality of Filch, the way he clutches his mop like a soldier would a weapon, the way he leans in too close to whisper threats. It's unsettling, yes, but it's also an expression of control. For a man who lacks magic, these props become symbols of dominance. In a world where wands reign, Filch brandishes buckets and chains with a zealot's passion. There is one moment in Goblet of Fire that deserves special mention. When the Yule Ball ends and the students have retreated, Filch is seen chasing after them, snapping, "Rubbish! Everywhere!" He swats at confetti and scattered ornaments, muttering curses under his breath. The spectacle is hilarious, but beneath the surface, it's a metaphor. He is always cleaning up after others, always picking up the remnants of joy he cannot share. He exists in the shadows of other people's happiness. Number 16. Fleur Delacour. Fleur Delacour walked into the pages of Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire like a breeze from another world, elegant, proud, Veela-touched, and breathtakingly beautiful. But beyond the allure, readers met a character who, for a long time, felt strangely flat. Fleur was seen as superficial, vain, and overly confident. Her strong accent, her beauty, and her pride seemed to make her an outsider among the tightly knit British magical community. Even Hermione, usually tolerant and open-minded, remarked with suspicion on Fleur's presence. "She's only here because of her looks," Ron had said bluntly, and that sentiment hung around her like an invisible shroud. For many readers, Fleur was the pretty one, the distraction, the diva, the girl who was perhaps too aware of her own perfection. It didn't help that Fleur often behaved with a chilly detachment. During the Triwizard Tournament, she didn't exactly warm herself to the Hogwarts crowd. She referred to Hogwarts as "Zis Hogwarts" with a slight curl of her lip. When her younger sister Gabrielle was taken for the second task, Fleur panicked, understandably. But it was Harry, not Fleur, who saved the girl, and that moment only reinforced Fleur's image as fragile, more concerned with image than action. It's true that she faced a dragon, like the other champions, but her defeat in the maze during the third task seemed anticlimactic. There was no moment of triumph, no flash of unexpected heroism. Just Fleur, elegant and distant, slipping quietly out of the spotlight. Then came Half-Blood Prince, and everything changed. Fleur reappeared not as a competitor, but as a fiancé, engaged to Bill Weasley. And the reaction was, well, not warm. Molly Weasley, the heart of the Weasley family, was clearly not a fan. "I really don't know what Bill sees in her," she said once, tight-lipped. Fleur's arrival at the Burrow sparked tension. She clashed with Molly, ignored Ginny's barbs, and carried herself with an air of superiority. She wore expensive robes, commented on English weather with disdain, and seemed uninterested in fitting in. She's not right for Bill, many thought, including readers. And yet, something deeper pulsed beneath Fleur's perfect exterior. She didn't waver in her love for Bill despite the Weasleys' disapproval. She endured their coldness with a kind of steel. Yes, she complained. Yes, she was arrogant, but she stayed. And when tragedy struck, when Bill was mauled by Fenrir Greyback during the Battle of the Astronomy Tower, everything shifted. The moment is short in the book, but unforgettable. Molly, ever protective of her children, gently suggests that Fleur might not want to go through with the wedding now that Bill is disfigured. It's a loaded moment, full of judgment, perhaps even relief. Molly's subtle implication is clear. The perfect French girl surely won't want a scarred werewolf for a husband. But Fleur doesn't hesitate. "What do I care how he looks?" she snaps. "I am good-looking enough for both of us, I think. All these scars show is that my husband is brave." It's a line that slams the door on every doubt about her character. In that instant, Fleur becomes real. Not a caricature of beauty, but a woman of fierce love, loyalty, and strength. It's the moment she wins Molly over. It's the moment she wins many readers over, too. This scene is absent from the films. Not entirely, but not with the same weight. In the books, it's deeply emotional. The shift in Fleur's character is not because she changes, but because we finally see her. The films, perhaps understanding how limited time was, took a different path. They never made Fleur cold or vain. She appears less often, speaks less, and is portrayed as warm, noble, and brave from the start. When she steps forward to support Bill, her voice is calm and loving. There's no friction with Molly, no standoff, no insult to overcome. She simply loves him. It's powerful, yes, but it lacks the dramatic arc of the book's Fleur. That said, the film version does something remarkable in its own way. In the little screen time she has, Fleur is not the diva. She's quietly heroic. She participates in the Battle of the Seven Potters. She marries Bill in a beautiful, solemn wedding that's later shattered by Death Eaters. She is present, and her courage speaks through her actions. The scene in the film where she and Bill are together in Shell Cottage, caring for the wounded, hosting Harry and his companions, is intimate and moving. She has become a part of the resistance, not just a love interest. But again, in the books, that evolution is earned through conflict. Fleur's story is about perception, how easily we judge others, especially those who seem too perfect. Her beauty was a curse as much as a blessing. It isolated her, made others assume she was shallow or self-centered. Even the Vila blood, a detail often forgotten, made her enchanting, but also suspect. Molly and Ginny thought she was manipulating Bill with her looks. Only time and pain proved otherwise. Her accent, too, played into that perception. It was easy to mock. Rowling wrote it phonetically, often humorously, as in, "It is so cold here, so wet." But beneath that, Fleur was navigating life in a second language, in a new culture, surrounded by people who didn't like her. And still she didn't back down. She defended her love. She stood tall. She didn't pretend to be someone else. Fleur Delacour was herself, unapologetically. Even Gabrielle's rescue in the second task takes on new meaning when viewed through this lens. Fleur panicked, yes, but it wasn't cowardice. It was love. Her sister had been taken, and the idea that something could go wrong, that Gabrielle could drown, shattered her composure. "You saved her," she whispered to Harry afterward, "even though she was not your hostage." Fleur's pride cracked that day, and she showed gratitude, humility. It was the beginning of her humanization. There's something poignant about her wedding, too. It was supposed to be a celebration, a moment of unity. Instead, it became a scene of terror. But Fleur didn't crumble. She stayed. She fought. In Deathly Hallows, when Harry is hiding in Shell Cottage, recovering from the escape from Malfoy Manor, Fleur is there, quiet, compassionate, and unafraid. She tends to the wounded. She feeds them. She gives them shelter. She becomes, in many ways, a symbol of light in a world gone dark. That contrast between the reader's first impression and the woman she becomes is one of the most satisfying character arcs in the series, and it's subtle. Fleur doesn't get a redemption arc with fanfare. She doesn't have a grand moment like Snape or Dobby, but she grows, she reveals herself, and what she reveals is powerful. Her courage is quieter than Harry's, less dramatic than Hermione's, not as obvious as Ron's, But it's real. It's in the way she holds Bill's hand, the way she smiles despite the scars, the way she keeps going even when the world breaks around her. Fleur doesn't need to prove herself with spells or speeches. She proves herself with presence. It's interesting how little the books delve into her inner life. We don't get Fleur's thoughts, her fears, her hopes. She's seen through others' eyes, and those eyes are often unkind, but perhaps that's the point. Fleur is a lesson in misunderstanding, in bias, in learning to see beyond surfaces. She's more than her looks, more than her accent, more than the judgment others pass on her. She is, in the end, a warrior of love. That line, "I am good-looking enough for both of us," is remembered because it's funny, defiant, and true. But what follows is more important. All these scars show is that my husband is brave. It's her heart on display. It's Fleur saying, "I choose him. I stand by him, no matter what." That is not vanity. That is devotion. In a series filled with iconic women, Hermione, Ginny, Luna, Molly, Bellatrix, Fleur is easy to overlook. She's not the smartest, not the wildest, not the strongest, but she is one of the most human. She came into a hostile environment, was judged for who she was, and still held her head high. She demanded to be loved as she was, and she gave love fiercely and truly. If anything was missing in the books, it was time. Time to explore her more deeply. Time to hear her speak without being interrupted. Time to feel her struggle. The films tried to fix that by softening her, making her more palatable. But in doing so, they lost the friction that made her arc so rewarding. Fleur Delacour is not perfect. But that's what makes her beautiful. Not the Vila charm, not the flowing hair or flawless skin, but her heart, her strength, her refusal to be anyone but herself. And in the darkest times, that's the kind of magic that truly matters. Number 17, Peter Pettigrew. Of all the characters who flicker across the pages of J.K. Rowling's Harry Potter series, few are as viscerally loathed and simultaneously as unsettlingly familiar as Peter Pettigrew. He is not a villain of grandeur like Lord Voldemort, nor a tragic anti-hero like Severus Snape. He is smaller, slipperier, and far more human in a way that leaves the reader uneasy. His betrayal isn't poetic, it's pitiful. And yet it is this very pitifulness that makes him terrifying. Because Peter Pettigrew is a mirror, a reminder of what anyone could become if courage fails at the wrong moment. From the first time his name is mentioned in Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, it is attached to deceit and death. He is introduced through the story of betrayal, the man who sold James and Lily Potter to Voldemort. Peter Pettigrew, who they say killed 13 people with a single curse. That line lingers in the reader's memory not because of the number, but because it hints at a terrifying power. Yet when we finally meet him, Pettigrew is not powerful. He is not fearsome. He is pathetic, hunched, twitching, and always glancing nervously around him. Peter is the embodiment of cowardice. In the shrieking shack, when Sirius Black corners him, we witness a masterclass in grovelling. He doesn't stand, he begs. He needs Sirius, what could I have done? The Dark Lord, you have no idea. He has weapons you can't imagine. It's not courage that defines Peter Pettigrew. It's his ability to choose survival over loyalty, self-preservation over integrity, again and again. What makes this moment even more haunting is that he was once part of the Marauders. Alongside James Potter, Sirius Black and Remus Lupin, Peter ran through the halls of Hogwarts as one of the most beloved friend groups in the school's history. He was Wormtail, their brother-in-arms, the fourth corner of the Marauders' map. To imagine that group without knowing how it ends is to see camaraderie. To look at it with hindsight is to see the seeds of betrayal buried in plain sight. And yet, how did they not see it? Why did James trust Peter with his life, even above Sirius? The answer is chilling in its realism, because sometimes the most harmless-seeming friend is the one no one suspects. Peter had lived in the shadow of stronger personalities. James had the charm, Sirius the boldness, Remus the wisdom. Peter had only his desperation to be included, and that desperation, when turned inwards, made him weak, but when turned outward, made him dangerous. When we look at Timothy Spall's performance in the films, we see this internal tension manifested in every twitch of his lips and flutter of his fingers. He is a man perpetually recoiling from himself. In Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, when he assists in Voldemort's rebirth, his horror at cutting off his own hand is not just fear of pain, it's the terror of knowing what he has become. Flesh of the servant, willingly given. Voldemort hisses and Peter trembles. He gives willingly, but not out of devotion. Out of the same impulse that has always guided him, fear. And yet he is not without guilt. That's the uncomfortable truth. Peter's cowardice is not born from evil. In the Deathly Hallows, when Harry and his friends are captured and dragged to the Malfoy Manor, there is a brief, fleeting moment that reveals the last spark of humanity in Pettigrew. As he enters the dungeon, he hesitates when Harry reminds him, "You owe me, Wormtail." And for a heartbeat, Peter Pettigrew hesitates, and that hesitation costs him his life. The silver hand that Voldemort gave him, enchanted to sense betrayal, strangles him before he can make a choice, or perhaps because he was about to. This moment is deeply tragic because it confirms that Peter was not beyond redemption, but he was too broken to reach it. His death is not grand. It is not brave. It is not mourned. And yet it is, in its quiet horror, one of the most profound moments of the series. It is a reminder that even the worst of us carry the seeds of decency. But whether those seeds ever bloom depends on the choices we make when no one is watching. In that way, Peter is almost more terrifying than Voldemort. The Dark Lord is evil incarnate. Peter is the man who could be your classmate, your colleague, your friend. He does not destroy because he wants power. He destroys because he is too afraid not to. And this is where Rowling's brilliance shines, because she does not let us look away from that kind of evil. She makes us stare it in the face. In the books, even Sirius can't find words strong enough to damn Peter. You should have died rather than betray your friends as we would have done for you. That line is not just a condemnation. It's an indictment of everything Peter failed to be. And yet again we must ask, could he have been anything else? His animagus form soi, a rat, is symbolic on so many levels it borders on cruel. Rats are survivors. They hide in walls, in shadows, in pockets. They are reviled, but nearly impossible to eradicate. Peter lives for 12 years as Ron Weasley's pet Scabbers, which is perhaps one of the darkest jokes in the series. Imagine the weight of that silence, living in the home of the family of one of the boys whose best friend you helped murder, sleeping in the same bed, riding in the same pockets, watching Ron grow up, watching the twins laugh, watching Molly Weasley's kindness, the same kindness he never earned and never reciprocated and never saying a word. Rowling forces us to consider that evil is not always loud. Sometimes it is small, sometimes it curls into a ball and pretends to be a pet, sometimes it listens, watches, waits, and when it chooses to act, the consequences are irreversible. And yet, even with all this in mind, Peter is not a monster, he is a man. That's what makes him unbearable to witness. It's telling that even Voldemort never truly respects Peter. In the Goblet of Fire, he calls him Wormtail with disdain and punishes him despite his service. Peter is not a follower out of ideology, he is a servant out of necessity. He has no place in any world, dark or light. He is used, and perhaps that is his punishment, to never belong again. There's a chilling scene in The Half-Blood Prince that isn't in the films, where Snape and Narcissa visit Spinner's End. Peter is there, serving drinks, snivelling in the background. He has power, he's a trusted Death Eater. And yet he is still the errand boy. No one looks at him with admiration. No one thanks him. He traded his soul for safety and was left with neither. And even in death he is denied dignity. There is no funeral, no one mourns, no one speaks his name with sorrow. He slips away as quietly as he lived for most of the series, forgotten, unloved, and unlamented. And perhaps that is the true price of betrayal. Not death, but the erasure of identity. A man who once had friends, who once had a nickname, who once laughed, reduced to a whisper. In storytelling, characters like Peter are rare. Most fiction allows us clear lines between good and evil, heroes and villains. But Peter exists in the grey. He is the what if, the cautionary tale. He shows us that evil doesn't always march in boots or speak in riddles. Sometimes it squeaks and hides and does nothing at all, until it's too late. One cannot discuss Peter without also considering the emotional devastation he caused. For Sirius, he was the friend who took everything. For Remus, he was a reminder that trust is dangerous. For Harry, he was the reason his parents died. But the most devastating aspect is that Peter could have chosen differently at any point. He could have said no, he could have told Dumbledore, he could have turned himself in, but he didn't. There is a moment in Prisoner of Azkaban when Harry stops Sirius and Remus from killing Peter. It is one of Harry's first great moral decisions. "I don't reckon my dad would have wanted them to become killers, yeah, just for you," he tells Peter. In that moment, Peter's life is saved not by his worth, but by Harry's mercy. A mercy Peter never deserved and never repaid. And yet it is that mercy, the very act of sparing a man like Peter, that defines the core message of the Harry Potter series. That even in the face of betrayal, loss, and fear, we must choose compassion over vengeance, not because the other deserves it, but because we do. Peter Pettigrew is not a character we admire. He is not even one we enjoy hating. He is something far worse, a character we recognize. We recognize the moment of hesitation, the fear of standing alone, the temptation to follow the stronger voice. We recognize and we recoil because we know that given the wrong turn, the wrong fear, we could be him. And that is why Peter Pettigrew matters. He's not a joke, nor a cartoon. He's not comic relief. He is the darkest shadow cast by the brightest light. He is what happens when the smallest man is handed the biggest choice and chooses wrong. Number 18, Kingsley Shacklebolt. In the half-lit corridors of the Ministry of Magic, where whispers of betrayal and loyalty slithered like serpents in the dark, a man in deep purple robes moved with the silent authority of a shadow. Kingsley Shacklebolt. His name was not often shouted nor etched into grand retellings of the war's climax, but those who paid attention knew. He was the storm behind the still air, the vigilant eye in the chaos. When Kingsley entered a room, the conversation paused, not from fear, but from the respect that clung to him like a second cloak. From the very beginning, Kingsley was described in the books as a formidable aura. Kingsley Shacklebolt, a tall black wizard with a shaven head and a deep, slow voice, was sitting on the edge of the desk, Ruling wrote in Order of the Phoenix, painting a picture not of a man of flesh, but of steel. He was no ordinary ministry man. He was hand-picked for the Order of the Phoenix by Dumbledore himself. A master of deception, he infiltrated the ministry while feeding the Order crucial information, operating behind enemy lines with calculated calm. He risked everything with a steady hand and a clear mind. But Kingsley was often veiled in the books, there, yet distant. The narrative rarely lingered on him. He coordinated, protected, maneuvered, but always from the periphery. When he appeared at 12 Grimmauld Place, his words were brief. When he escorted Harry from Privet Drive, he was efficient, offering little more than a nod of confidence. This subtle presence gave the impression of a useful ally, a soldier in the background, never the general of the frame. And then came the films. With the booming cadence of George Harris's voice, Kingsley Shacklebolt emerged from the shadows of the written word and became something else entirely, a prophet draped in velvet and steel. He was no longer merely the Order's inside man. He was the voice of resistance, the bastion of wisdom when others faltered. In Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 1, when the Order discusses plans to move Harry, it is Kingsley who speaks with calm strategy and unwavering composure. "You'll be safe, Harry," he says. with a calmness that silences even Mad-Eye. The gravity in his tone carries the weight of a man who has seen too much and still chooses hope. His transformation in the cinematic world is perhaps best captured in the final battle. When the forces of good rally at Hogwarts, Kingsley appears not as a sideline supporter, but as a general of light. He commands squads, deflects curses with surgical precision, and moves through the battlefield like a conductor among chaos. The camera frames him often as a point of strength, cutting between shots of frantic students and his unwavering form, standing firm before the onslaught of darkness. The difference between book and film is stark. The book gives us facts. He is competent, brave, respected. But the film imbues Kingsley with symbolism. He becomes more than just an aura. He is an emblem of stability. When he fights beside Professor McGonagall during the Battle of Hogwarts, it is not merely two warriors defending their school. It is wisdom and strength united against tyranny. Their scenes, side by side, even brief, speak volumes without words, and it is in silence that Kingsley truly shines. His aura, his presence, becomes a cinematic tool. One of his most memorable lines comes not from duels or strategy sessions, but from a single, sharp observation. As the Death Eaters infiltrate the wedding of Bill and Fleur, a Patronus bursts into the air. "The Ministry has fallen. Scrimgeour is dead. They are coming." It's Kingsley's voice that carries the message, solemn, weighty, and deliberate. In those words, he becomes a harbinger, a modern-day seer channeling a dark truth. The gravity of his voice, slow and deep, lands like prophecy. For a moment, he is not just an aura, he is the voice of the film's conscience. In the books, we knew Kingsley was powerful, but we saw few demonstrations. His skill was acknowledged but not showcased. In the film, however, he battles with majestic brutality. During the Battle of Hogwarts, the sight of him dueling Death Eaters, his spells a blur of blue and gold, added flesh to the myth. He is never frantic. He does not yell. He moves like a blade, drawn at the right moment, never before. It's this reimagining that makes Kingsley one of the most successfully adapted characters in the transition from page to screen. His book counterpart was, by necessity, functional. He served roles, facilitated plans, appeared when needed. The film freed him from that narrative restraint and sculpted him into something more emotional, more heroic. A man not just of power, but of gravitas. And yet this transformation does not betray the books, it enhances them. His wisdom was always present. When Sirius was on the run, it was Kingsley who fed misinformation to the Ministry to keep him safe. When Dumbledore died, it was Kingsley who helped secure Hogwarts. Rowling wrote him as brilliant in the shadows. The filmmakers simply pulled him into the light. One of the most poetic alignments between book and screen comes at the end. After the defeat of Voldemort, the wizarding world needed someone to heal it, someone strong but fair, a protector who knew war and could speak peace. Kingsley Shacklebolt was made Minister for Magic, not because he sought power, but because power had already bowed before him. Rowling tells us in the Deathly Hallows epilogue and follow-up materials that under his leadership, the Ministry was cleansed of corruption. He brought transparency, justice, honor. It is fitting. He had always been a man of structure, not rigidity, of belief, not dogma. When chaos reigned, he brought rhythm. When the old Ministry faltered under its own pride and prejudice, Kingsley took its bones and gave it a new spine. In the films, his final scenes are few but striking. He stands among leaders, a quiet sentinel. He gives orders that are followed without question. He does not seek applause, nor does he bask in the glory of victory. He is there to rebuild. The war may be over, but Kingsley's true role has just begun. There's a moment in the film where he tells the others, "You may not like him, Minister, but you can't deny Dumbledore's got style." It's a humorous line on the surface, delivered with a smirk. But behind it is a man who recognizes true leadership, unconventional, unpolished, but essential. Kingsley's own style would be quieter, perhaps, but no less profound. In his own way, he carried on Dumbledore's mission, not just to fight evil, but to preserve what made the fight worth it. Among all the characters of the series, Kingsley's arc is one of the most understated, yet most profound. He was a man forged in the ministry, but loyal to the truth, a soldier of bureaucracy who turned into a rebel, then into a saviour. His strength was never in his wand alone, it was in his judgment. He knew whom to trust, he knew when to act, and most importantly, he knew how to stay silent until it was time to speak. George Harris brought to life what the books had only hinted at. With a single glance, a weighted word, or a steady step, Kingsley became the moral compass of the screen, a rare thing in a world so divided. As viewers and readers, we often gravitate toward the characters who shout, who duel, who sacrifice. But Kingsley reminds us that true power sometimes lies in calm, in patience, in watching long enough to strike only once, and striking true. In many ways, he is the quiet heartbeat of the resistance. The moment his voice pierces the wedding celebration, announcing the fall of the ministry, the entire story shifts. It is no longer about running, it is about war. And who better to guide us through it than a man who has already been fighting it in silence for years? The Order of the Phoenix had its legends, Dumbledore, Sirius, Lupin, but Kingsley was the man they trusted with the gaps. He did not need a spotlight to lead, he did not need adoration to act. He worked in the silence between plans, the moments between victories, and when the time came to rise, he rose with a voice as steady as stone. There's a reason he was the one to inform the Muggle Prime Minister about Voldemort's return. Rowling gives him that task not by accident, but because Kingsley is diplomacy personified. He stands at the crossroads between two worlds, bridging chaos with logic. In the book Half-Blood Prince, the Muggle Prime Minister describes Kingsley's presence as oddly reassuring, and so he was, not just to the Muggles, but to us all. Kingsley Shacklebolt was never the star, he was the foundation, and in the films that foundation was allowed to shine, unshakable, undeniable, and, finally, unforgettable. Number 19, Lily Potter. Lily Potter walks the corridors of memory like a half-spoken spell, present in every stone of Hogwarts and yet seen only in glimpses. To Harry she was always more idea than person, a pair of green eyes staring out of an old photograph, a voice echoing in someone else's story. In J.K. Rowling's world, Lily was the symbol of a love so profound it could defy death itself. But it is striking how little we truly know her. What we understand of Lily Evans, later Lily Potter, comes not from her, but through fragments, from the biased eyes of Severus Snape, from the idealized recollections of Professor Lupin, from the whispers of Petunia Dursley's bitterness. The real Lily, as a breathing, feeling human being, often remains a silhouette against the blinding light of her legend. We are told that she was brilliant, a gifted witch, born to Muggles, but glowing with magical potential. Slughorn describes her as vivacious, and one of the brightest he ever taught. Sirius, ever the loyal friend, remembers her with warmth and fierce admiration, and yet there is a weight in these compliments, a distance that makes them sound like eulogies carved in marble. In the books, Lily doesn't speak for herself. Her lines are rare, tucked into recollections, a scream on Halloween night, a protective cry of love, or a firm but gentle rebuke to a young Severus Snape. These are moments burned into other people's minds, not her own voice. It is in Deathly Hallows that we see one of the rare direct interactions between Harry and the essence of his mother. In the Forest of Dean, when Harry uses the resurrection stone, Lily appears, translucent and eternal. "You've been so brave," she tells him, her voice full of pride and sorrow. "Stay close to me." It's a ghostly exchange, heavy with things unsaid. Even here, Lily exists more as a guide than a full character. Her role is to support, to comfort, to be strong for Harry, not to be vulnerable or complex in her own right. There is, however, a different Lily hidden beneath the heroism. In the Order of the Phoenix, when Harry dives into Snape's pensive and finds himself in a memory, he sees his mother as a teenage girl. A Lily who is angry, fierce, unafraid to call out injustice. She defends Snape against James's bullying. "Leave him alone!" she yells, stepping in front of Snape, her eyes blazing. It's a pivotal moment. Not just because it shows the rift between her and James, but because we finally see Lily with her own agency, acting from her sense of right and wrong, not filtered through anyone else's memory. But that memory, too, fractures. Snape calls her mudblood in a moment of bitterness, and something between them breaks irreparably. That scene leaves an aftertaste of regret, not just for Severus, but for us as readers, because it hints at a Lily who had her own dreams, her own heartbreaks, and her own limits. She was not merely a saint or a martyr, she was human. Yet Rowling never lets us follow her past that breaking point. We never see Lily fall in love with James. We never hear her laugh or cry or argue with her husband. We are given a woman preserved in amber, perfect, unreachable. It is the films that attempt, in small and careful strokes, to breathe life into this marble figure. Geraldine Somerville, cast as Lily Potter, had few lines, few scenes, and yet what she did with them is nothing short of astonishing. Her presence lingers, her face, especially in Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, framed by the glow of the killing curse, is etched into the emotional memory of the audience. Somerville's Lily is quiet, but there's steel beneath the tenderness. In the flashbacks, when she takes Harry into her arms and whispers, "Be brave," it is a moment that compresses a lifetime of maternal love into a few seconds. She doesn't cry or scream, she simply holds him, her face luminous with courage. That is the gift the films gave us, the humanity behind the legend. What the books imply through reverent tones, the films make tactile. In The Deathly Hallows, Part 2, during the walk through the forest, Somerville stands beside Daniel Radcliffe, her hand brushing his arm. "You've been so brave," she says, almost identically to the book, but with a tremor in her voice that makes it heartbreakingly personal. She is no longer just the idea of a mother. She is his mother, real, soft-spoken, strong. Her presence here brings emotional closure to the saga in a way the books could not fully deliver. Somerville's portrayal was never loud. It didn't need to be. It was in her posture, in the way she knelt beside the crib, in the way she stood straight against Voldemort. Her every appearance was a visual hymn to maternal love, not the overly sweet, two-dimensional kind, but the fierce and intelligent love that chooses sacrifice with eyes wide open. The courage was not just in her final act, but in the way she lived, loved, and refused to step aside, and yet we ache for more. For all the mythologizing around Lily, we never got to read her letter to Harry as an adult. We never got a chapter written from her point of view. There is one letter, of course, found in Sirius's old house, written to Remus and Sirius about Harry's birthday. It's short, affectionate, full of casual warmth. Harry's birthday cake was a mess. James was in charge of the icing. It's such a small thing, but it shatters the distance. Suddenly, Lily is not a symbol. She is a woman in a kitchen smiling at her husband's clumsy efforts, writing to friends during a war. It is this letter, yellowed and torn, that offers more of Lily than all the praises of her brilliance combined. It is worth noting that while James is allowed to change, to go from arrogant teen to loving father, Lily's character remains static, always kind, always good, always wise. It makes her noble, but not quite real. It is as if perfection robbed her of the right to evolve. She became the angel in the story, while the others were allowed to be human. And then there's the curious relationship with Severus Snape, a boy from Spinner's End, clinging to the only warmth he'd ever known. Snape's love for Lily became his curse and his redemption. "Always," he says to Dumbledore when asked if he still loves her. And in that single word, Lily's entire identity is once again tied to someone else's devotion. Snape's memories, the playground, the first spells, the growing distance, show us a Lily who was kind, yes, but also increasingly independent. She grew up, he didn't. And yet his love fossilized her, immortalized her not as she was, but as he needed her to be. Dumbledore, too, speaks of Lily as an emblem. "She died to save you," he tells Harry, "and her love lives in you still." That may be true, but it makes Lily more spell than person. She becomes a talisman, a protective enchantment passed from mother to son. It is moving, poetic even, but also impersonal. What were her dreams, her fears? Did she like pumpkin pasties or prefer treacle tart? What made her laugh when she wasn't defending a friend? Petunia offers one rare perspective, untainted by adoration. In the Philosopher's Stone she snarls that Lily was a freak who got blown up. But even she cannot fully hide the pain. She got a letter just like that and disappeared off to that school, Petunia says, eyes narrowing, and came home every holiday with her pockets full of frog spawn, turning teacups into rats. It's an odd detail, but an evocative one. You can almost picture young Lily giggling as she surprised her sister with magical mischief. In Petunia's contempt lies buried grief, jealousy perhaps, or a broken bond never healed. Harry himself clings to the few things he has: a photograph, a letter, a scent in the Amortentia potion. It smells like treacle tart and a broomstick handle, and something flowery he thought he might have smelled at the Burrow. A haunting line, for it implies Harry is drawn to the scent of his mother, though he never knew her. The love, the connection is there in his bones, but the memories are not. Rowling makes one bold choice that remains powerful even in its restraint. Lily does not speak often, but she is always present, in Harry's face, in his courage, in the mirror of Erised, where she stands beside James, smiling. She represents everything he longs for. "I show not your face, but your heart's desire," says Dumbledore, and for Harry it is always her. What would Lily have been like if she had lived? A healer, perhaps, or a teacher at Hogwarts, fiercely protecting her students. Maybe she would have been the one to uncover the truth about Horcruxes long before Dumbledore. Or she would have argued with Harry when he got too reckless, pulling him back from the edge. She would have scolded Ron gently, hugged Hermione tightly, and laughed at Fred and George's pranks. We imagine all this, because Rowling never gave us the chance to see it. In the end, Lily Potter is the heart of the series, not because of who she was, but because of what she means. She is the fire that repels darkness, the whisper in the dark saying, "Be brave." She is not given a full story, but she is the reason the story exists. Without Lily there is no Harry. Without her choice there is no hope. And so we return to that moment in the film. A crib, a shadow at the door, a mother kneeling, shielding her child. "Be brave," she whispers one last time. It is not just a line, it is a spell, the truest magic of all. Love, given freely, unconditionally, and forever. Number 20, Dolores Umbridge. Of all the villains in the Harry Potter universe, Dolores Jane Umbridge stands apart, not just because she's detestable, but because she is real. Unlike Lord Voldemort, a snake-faced dark lord born from prophecy and ancient magic, Umbridge is a person you might actually meet in a government office, a school staff room, or a political committee. Her evil is subtle, bureaucratic, polite, and that's what makes her terrifying. In the books, Umbridge is first introduced in Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix as a representative of the Ministry of Magic, tasked with overseeing Hogwarts under the pretense of education reform. With her fluffy pink cardigans, sugary voice, and penchant for order, she quickly becomes a symbol of quiet oppression. But it is in the film adaptation where Imelda Staunton steps into the role that Umbridge's character evolves into something almost mythically sinister. Staunton's portrayal is so disturbingly accurate that audiences didn't just dislike Umbridge, they loathed her with a deep, fervent joy. From the moment she clears her throat in that little mouse-like squeak, "Hem! Hem!" we know what kind of character she is. Imelda Staunton's performance captures the essence of a person who uses formality, procedure, and sickly politeness as weapons. Her smile is a mask. Her calmness is a lie. And her punishments, especially the infamous "I must not tell lies" scene, are more chilling than many of the Dark Lord's curses. When Harry protests the Ministry's denial of Voldemort's return, she forces him to write lines with a blood quill, a magical object that carves the words into his hand. "You know deep down that you deserve to be punished," she tells him. And in that moment, she becomes a symbol of every authoritarian regime that claims cruelty is justice. Let us not forget the setting of her reign, her office, a perfectly pink nightmare. The film highlights this with obsessive detail, lace doilies, kitten plates, velvet bows. It's a performance in cognitive dissonance. How can a place so cute feel so wrong? The answer lies in the tension between appearance and reality. Umbridge hides behind charm and civility, but it's a calculated strategy. Her pink walls are not softness, they are armor. Her kittens are not pets, they are sentinels. Staunton's Umbridge doesn't need a wand to hurt people. She uses her power, her rules, her educational decrees, and she uses them with pride. J.K. Rowling described Umbridge as a composite of people she disliked in real life, giving her an added layer of realism. The woman has a taste for power, and she cloaks it in the trappings of girlishness and delicacy, Rowling said. She's one of the few characters that I never really felt any sympathy for. And it shows. Umbridge is not misunderstood. She's not morally grey. She is, as Rowling intended, monstrous. One of the most haunting lines from the book is when Harry realizes the depth of her cruelty. "Because you know deep down you deserve to be punished, don't you, Mr. Potter?" This line, delivered with that gentle voice, holds a disturbing power. It's not just the words, it's the gaslighting, the psychological manipulation, the smiling face that tells you your pain is your fault. Umbridge doesn't shout. She whispers, and that's far more dangerous. Imelda Staunton knew exactly how to twist the knife. Her body language is sharp and precise, chin lifted just slightly above everyone else's, shoulders stiff, gaze unblinking. She doesn't blink often, that's something many fans noticed and commented on. It gives her an inhuman quality, like a predator. Her voice rarely rises above a measured lilt. Even in rage, she is contained. When the Weasley twins cause mayhem in her carefully ordered Hogwarts, she doesn't scream. She seethes, she doubles down, and that cold, restrained fury is more frightening than any explosion. Her greatest moment of horror comes during her rise to High Inquisitor. Each new educational decree she pins on the wall is like a brick in the prison she's building around the students. The thump of the hammer nailing the parchment is echoed by a swelling fear in the viewer. The rules become ridiculous. No more student organizations, no more laughter in hallways, no more music practice. Progress for progress's sake must be discouraged, one decree states. It's pure Orwellian nightmare, made even more terrifying because of how mundane it feels. She doesn't use magic to impose fear. She uses memos. What elevates Umbridge even further in the films is her position as a representative of government control. She doesn't act alone, she acts with the full authority of the Ministry. Her presence at Hogwarts is not just a personal power grab, it's a state-sanctioned occupation. Her cruelty is backed by law, her punishments legal. And this is where the horror crystallizes. Dolores Umbridge is not an outlier, she is a product of the system. In the book, Umbridge's ascent to power is portrayed through her manipulations and cunning, but the film shows her as an immovable force. She doesn't scheme like Bellatrix or whisper like Snape, she simply enforces. Her tyranny is clean, her evil is institutional, and when she finally becomes headmistress, her portrait hangs beside those of previous leaders, Rowena Ravenclaw, Phineas Nigellus, and Albus Dumbledore himself. It is this placement that makes her rule feel sacrilegious. She is not fit to sit among them, and yet there she is, smiling behind her lace curtains. Another unforgettable scene is her interrogation of students using Veritaserum, the truth serum. She uses it casually, almost gleefully. When she captures Harry and demands to know about Dumbledore's secret weapon, she says, "Very well, you have brought this on yourself." She believes every punishment she administers is just. That's what makes her so chilling. She truly believes she's doing the right thing. And then there's the moment in the Forbidden Forest. Lured by Hermione and Harry into a trap, Umbridge reveals her true face. When she attempts to use the Cruciatus Curse on a student, yes, a student, her mask slips completely. "You have to mean it, Harry," Bellatrix once said of the unforgivable curses, and Umbridge means it. She is ready to inflict torture without hesitation. The pink, the smiles, the kittens, they all dissolve into one truth. Dolores Umbridge is capable of anything. Imelda Staunton's performance during this scene is breathtaking. Her voice tightens, her eyes narrow, the sweetness vanishes. When the centaurs emerge and drag her away, it feels like poetic justice. And yet even then some viewers felt a pang of unease. Should we cheer? Should we pity her? No, Rowling gives us the answer. She was found several hours later not quite sane. There are no easy answers. Evil, even when punished, leaves residue. In a world filled with magic, dragons, and Death Eaters, it's a testament to Rowling's writing and Staunton's acting that the most feared character in Order of the Phoenix doesn't cast a single killing curse. Umbridge never becomes a Death Eater. She doesn't wear black robes. She works for the Ministry. She loves rules. She smiles while she destroys lives. And that's what makes her the most realistic villain in the entire series. There's a reason that audiences universally rate Umbridge as more hated than Voldemort. Voldemort is a fantasy villain. Umbridge is the real thing. She's the cruel teacher, the overreaching administrator, the bureaucrat who punishes honesty and rewards obedience. And the worst part? People like her exist. Staunton was praised by critics for her portrayal, with the New York Times calling her a villain for the ages. The subtlety of her performance, the little gestures, the clipped words, the perfectly enunciated threats, create a character that lingers in the mind long after the credits roll. She doesn't just play Umbridge, she becomes her. And yet, it's important to remember how the students resisted. Dumbledore's army, born in secret, is the direct answer to Umbridge's rule. It's a testament to youth, to rebellion, to courage in the face of suffocating authority. The room of requirement becomes a beacon of hope, hidden behind stone walls filled with students practicing spells to fight back. Against all odds, the students, led by Harry, Hermione, and Ron, say no. And in that, Umbridge's tyranny begins to crack. The film does something subtle in the way it contrasts her with Dumbledore. Where he is calm but open, wise but warm, she is saccharine and closed off. Dumbledore believes in choice, Umbridge believes in obedience, and when the time comes, Dumbledore vanishes rather than submit to her authority. His escape is not just magical, it's symbolic. "You seem to be laboring under the delusion that I am going to," what is the phrase? "Come quietly," he says, before disappearing in a burst of fire. And with that he leaves Umbridge to her own devices and to her inevitable fall. In the end, what makes Dolores Umbridge such an effective villain is that she doesn't need to change the world to ruin it. She just needs a little authority, a little power, and a firm belief that she is right. She doesn't cackle, she doesn't scream, she doesn't summon inferi. She writes laws, she enforces policies, she gives detentions, and perhaps that's the scariest thing of all. Number 21, Bellatrix Lestrange. Bellatrix Lestrange doesn't walk into the story, she erupts. In J.K. Rowling's books, she appears already painted in blood, her name whispered with fear, her allegiance to Lord Voldemort carved in stone. A notorious Death Eater imprisoned in Azkaban for torturing Alice and Frank Longbottom into insanity, she is a fanatic, a servant to the Dark Lord who values cruelty above all. She is dangerous, yes, but in the written word, Bellatrix is primarily a tool of evil, a soldier without a soul, bound to Voldemort's will like a moth to a flame. And while that makes her terrifying, it also leaves her somewhat flat. In the books, Bellatrix is unhinged, unrepentant, and lethal, but she's not the show. Then came Helena Bonham Carter. Her Bellatrix didn't just obey evil, she danced with it. In her hands, the character transformed from a faceless zealot into a living hurricane of chaos. From the moment she apparated into view, wild-haired and wide-eyed, Bellatrix became a living portrait of madness. Helena gave her more than just a sneer. She gave her theatre. She made Bellatrix sing when she should have screamed, laugh when she should have wept, and love Voldemort not like a soldier, but like a deranged lover consumed by obsession. And the world noticed. In the book Order of the Phoenix, Bellatrix is introduced during the battle at the Department of Mysteries. "You need more practice, baby," she coos to Harry after effortlessly deflecting his spell. "A baby's curse, nothing more." This Bellatrix is mocking, predatory, cruel. But her cruelty is methodical. She murders Sirius Black not with flair, but with brutal finality. Only one will die tonight. There is no poetry in her violence, no art, only purpose. She is Voldemort's perfect blade. But in the film version of Order of the Phoenix, Helena Bonham Carter reframes that moment into legend. Her Bellatrix skips down the halls of the Department of Mysteries, laughing like a child in a haunted house. When she kills Sirius, she doesn't just cast a spell, she sings. "I killed Sirius Black," she yells, her voice rising into a high-pitched lullaby of death. "I killed Sirius Black." She pirouettes like a ballerina on a battlefield. That single moment transformed her from henchwoman to icon. This wasn't simply acting, it was possession. Helena crafted Bellatrix's every gesture with detail bordering on insanity. She tilted her head like a curious bird before striking. She licked her teeth like a predator savoring the meal. She whispered in riddles. She screamed with joy. Her laughter came from the gut and ended in hysteria. And yet, she never let the audience forget how truly dangerous she was. When Bellatrix was in the room, anything could happen. That unpredictability became her power. Compare that to the book's portrayal. Bellatrix in the novels often operates within Voldemort's shadow. She follows orders. She's present during crucial events, the resurrection of Voldemort, the ambush at the astronomy tower, the torture of Hermione at Malfoy Manor. But she rarely leads the chaos. Even her language, though cruel, is structured. "You filthy little blood traitor," she spits at Ginny. "It's hate, but it's predictable hate." In contrast, the cinematic Bellatrix radiates instability. At Malfoy Manor in Deathly Hallows Part 1, she toys with Hermione like a cat with a wounded mouse, but Helena's performance turns the scene from mere torture into a psychological horror. "You stupid little girl," she hisses, carving the word mudblood into Hermione's skin. The violence is the same, but in Helena's hands it becomes ritual. She's not just hurting Hermione, she's performing cruelty, turning it into spectacle. Helena Bonham Carter even added details not in the script. For the scene in which Bellatrix taunts the Golden Trio at Malfoy Manor, Helena improvised the moment where she pulls a dagger from her boot and presses it to Hermione's throat. That wasn't in the original direction. It was Bellatrix, unfiltered. It was Helena reaching deep into the character's mind and finding the theatre behind the terror. Even her costuming helped tell the story. Bellatrix's clothing in the films, black corsets, gothic sleeves, tangled hair, wasn't just wardrobe, it was personality. She dressed like a Victorian widow, mourning the sanity she never had. Her tattoos, her crooked smile, her snarl, they weren't makeup, they were armor. Bellatrix wasn't hiding her madness, she wore it like a crown. And still, Helena grounded her Bellatrix in something terrifyingly human, obsession. In the books, Bellatrix's loyalty to Voldemort is described with reverence. She praises him, fears him, follows him. But in the films, her loyalty drips with something deeper. When Voldemort enters a room, Helena's Bellatrix doesn't bow. She crumbles, her eyes widen, her lips part. She gazes at him with trembling devotion, as though he were not a man but a god. It's not allegiance, it's worship. And it's disturbing. We see this in the movie Half-Blood Prince, when she burns down the burrow. "I killed Sirius Black," she screams again, as though she's addicted to the memory. Her joy in destruction, her thirst for chaos makes her stand apart from the rest of the Death Eaters. Even Fenrir Greyback is afraid of her. She's not just another villain. She's anarchy with a wand. It's telling that Voldemort himself keeps her close. In the Deathly Hallows Part 2 film, when Bellatrix sits at his side during the gathering at Malfoy Manor, she doesn't speak unless spoken to. But the way she watches him, hands fidgeting, eyes darting, tells you everything. Helena plays her as a woman on the edge of worship and madness. When Voldemort assigns her to guard the Lestrange vault at Gringotts, it's a sign of trust and also of control. She's his most dangerous weapon because she believes he is salvation, and yet Bellatrix isn't invincible. Her death in both book and film comes at the hands of Molly Weasley in one of the saga's most cathartic moments. In the book, Rowling writes, "Not my daughter, you bitch!" A line that has echoed through generations of readers. The battle is brief. Molly strikes with maternal fury. Bellatrix laughs, dodges, attacks, but finally falls. It is sudden. It is just. But in the movie, the scene is pure theatre. Bellatrix floats back with her usual smirk, cackling at Molly's rage, until she doesn't. The final blow strikes like lightning. Bellatrix disintegrates into ash, as if the chaos inside her couldn't survive without Voldemort's world. Even in death, she remains memorable. She doesn't just fall, she vanishes. That contrast between the two Bellatrixes, the book's fanatical killer and the film's manic siren, raises an important question. What makes a villain unforgettable? Is it their evil deeds or the way they revel in them? In the books, Bellatrix is a warning. In the films, she is a performance. And thanks to Helena Bonham Carter, that performance lingers like smoke long after the credits roll. It's worth noting that even Rowling praised Helena's portrayal. In interviews, the author described her as extraordinary, saying she brought a wicked brilliance to the role. And fans agree. Bellatrix became one of the most cosplayed characters in the Harry Potter universe, not because of her ideology, but because of her energy. She's fun to watch, terrifying to imagine, and impossible to forget. Other actors feared her presence on set. Daniel Radcliffe once admitted in an interview that Helena's improvisations made scenes wildly unpredictable. During the Department of Mysteries sequence, she accidentally punctured his eardrum with her wand, a real injury caused by real commitment. That kind of intensity didn't just elevate her scenes, it made everyone else sharpen their game. Ultimately, Helena's Bellatrix became a symbol of what happens when a character is given room to breathe outside the script. She took the bones Rowling gave her, madness, loyalty, sadism, and painted them in colors the book never dared. She made Bellatrix a villain worth fearing, yes, but also one worth watching. Again and again. In the end, Bellatrix Lestrange exists in two realities. In one, she is a cautionary tale, an example of what happens when belief is twisted into cruelty. In the other, she is theatrical chaos, Shakespearean in her madness, mesmerizing in her fall. Both are true, both are canon, but only one made the screen crackle, and that one was Helena Bonham Carter. Number 22, Tom Riddle, young Voldemort. Of all the figures in the world of Harry Potter, few evoke such instinctive dread as Lord Voldemort. But before he became the Dark Lord, he was Tom Marvolo Riddle, a boy with an extraordinary mind and an emptiness where his soul should have been. What makes his story so haunting is not just the horror of what he became, but the eerie calm of what he once was. Unlike many villains, young Tom was not an explosion of anger or madness. He was cold, calculated, and terribly polite. The terror he inspires doesn't come from the chaos he sowed in adulthood, but from the quiet stillness of his beginnings. In the books, J.K. Rowling paints Tom Riddle's portrait through the memories of others. Dumbledore speaks of him with wary precision, describing a boy with charm and brilliance, but also with a cruel edge. There is no doubt that he was a most gifted student, Dumbledore tells Harry in The Half-Blood Prince. But his powers, as you will have seen, were strangely warped and stunted. We are told of a boy who could manipulate others even as a child, a boy who took trophies from his victims and had a dangerous fascination with control. Yet much of what we learn is second-hand. Tom's horror is whispered, hinted at, never fully shown until the moment he emerges as Voldemort. It's in The Half-Blood Prince that we get the closest look at his younger self. When Dumbledore visits the orphanage where Tom lives, the boy is 10 years old. The setting is bleak, grey and empty, an echo of Tom's own spirit. Mrs. Cole, the matron, says, "He scares the other children." And indeed, when we finally meet him, his words chill the air around him. "I can make things move without touching them. I can make animals do what I want without training them. I can make bad things happen to people who are mean to me," he says to Dumbledore with unsettling calm. There is no anger in his voice, no regret, only observation, like a scientist examining a reaction. That scene in the book, unsettling as it is, transforms into something even more powerful on screen. In David Yates's Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince, young Tom is played by hero Fiennes Tiffin, whose performance is a masterclass in eerie restraint. With his dark eyes and emotionless face, this Tom is more ghost than boy. He speaks softly, never blinking too much, watching Dumbledore with a predator's patience. "I can speak to snakes," he says, his voice like silk stretched too thin. "They find me." Whisper things. The way he delivers the line is not boastful. It is chillingly casual. It's this calmness, this unnatural control that makes him so terrifying. Rowling's narrative gives us glimpses of Tom's school years at Hogwarts, where he quickly becomes a favourite among professors. Professor Slughorn remembers him fondly. "A charming boy," he says, before adding, "not unlike yourself. But the charm is a mask." Dumbledore sees through it. "You must be wondering why I never chose Tom Riddle as a prefect," he says. "He was, after all, the most brilliant student the school had seen for years. The answer is, I did not trust him." The manipulation, the subtle coercion, the ability to make people like him, it was all carefully curated by a boy who understood human nature far too well. In the films, another powerful portrayal comes from Frank Delane, who plays the teenage Tom Riddle in Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince. When he visits Slughorn to inquire about Horcruxes, his face is calm, almost kind, but his eyes flicker with something darker. "I was in the library the other night," he says smoothly, "and I came across something rather odd about a rare bit of magic. Something called a Horcrux." His voice is low, curious, but behind that curiosity lies an obsession. It's a quiet scene, lit in warm tones, but there's a predator in the room. The real horror comes from what's not said. From the moment Slughorn looks into Tom's face and realizes this boy is asking how to split his soul. What's particularly haunting is how early Tom begins to fracture himself. At 16, he's already killed, already hidden pieces of himself inside objects. The diary, the locket, the ring, all become anchors for the soul he is steadily tearing apart. "Wouldn't it be better," he asks Slughorn, "if one were to live forever?" The question is posed as an innocent musing, but it contains the logic of a monster. For Tom, murder isn't just a means to an end, it's a tool, a transaction. Something to be studied, controlled, perfected. This disturbing evolution is not born from desperation or trauma. Tom Riddle was not broken by the world. He was born with a void where love should have been. Dumbledore says it best. "You will find that I will only truly have left this school when none here are loyal to me. Help will always be given at Hogwarts to those who ask for it." But Tom never asked. He never trusted. He saw affection as weakness, friendship as a threat. Even his followers were not friends, they were tools. The Death Eaters feared him more than they loved him, and that began long before he became Voldemort. In the Chamber of Secrets, we encounter another shade of young Tom Riddle, the 16-year-old memory preserved in the diary. This Riddle, played by Christian Coulson, is elegant, handsome, and supremely confident. He lures Ginny Weasley into revealing her secrets, feeding off her soul like a parasite. "I grew stronger and stronger on a diet of her deepest fears," he tells Harry, "her darkest secrets. I grew powerful enough to start feeding Ginny a few secrets, to start pouring a little of my soul back into her." His words are theatrical, but his smile is cold. He stands tall in his pristine uniform, untouched by chaos as the basilisk slithers beneath the school. It's a portrait of evil that seduces rather than screams. Tom Riddle's progression into Voldemort isn't marked by sudden violence or rage. It's a slow descent, a calculated shedding of humanity. He asks Dumbledore to remain at Hogwarts after graduation. "I think I'd like to stay," he says, "to teach." But Dumbledore knows better. He suspects Tom doesn't want to teach, he wants access to secrets, to students, to the castle itself. He liked to collect trophies, Dumbledore muses, and he was not above planting them where they would cause most harm. The boy's ambition had no limit, but neither did his cunning. It's important to understand that Tom Riddle did not see himself as evil. He saw himself as exceptional, as a creator of destiny, not a destroyer. Even when he asked about Horcruxes, it wasn't out of fear of death, it was out of disdain for mortality. He believed he was above it. That belief, more than any curse or hex, is what destroyed him. For all his intellect, he never understood love, never grasped that true power lies in sacrifice, not survival. The visual depiction of young Tom in the films completes the picture the books begin. We see his eyes, cold, watchful, always calculating. His hands are steady. His tone never raised. He is never emotional, never uncertain. Even when he kills, it is with dispassion. The famous quote from the Goblet of Fire, "There is nothing worse than death," is met by Dumbledore's quiet response, "You are quite wrong." That moment captures the philosophical chasm between them. Tom feared death more than anything. Dumbledore pitied those who did. There's a haunting symmetry in the way the orphanage scenes mirror the later ruins of Voldemort's life. As a boy, Tom collects small trophies from his victims. As an adult, he collects Horcruxes, enchanted and hidden. He uses people, then discards them. He kills his own family to erase his past. The Riddles were found dead in their drawing room. The maid said it was the coldest she had ever felt in the house, we read in the Goblet of Fire. It's a scene devoid of violence. There are no wounds, no blood, just silence, as if death itself bowed to Tom's will. What Rowling shows us, slowly, relentlessly, is that Tom Riddle was always Voldemort. There was no fall in the classical sense, no moment where a good man broke and turned to darkness. The boy in the orphanage, the prefect at Hogwarts, the ghost in the diary, they were all faces of the same being. He didn't fall, he shed, he carved away everything that was human, piece by piece, until only the shadow remained. Yet perhaps the most terrifying truth is this: Tom Riddle was almost invisible. In a school full of magic, love, chaos, and joy, he walked among them unnoticed. Teachers praised him, students admired him. He made no waves, caused no scenes. But underneath, he was cutting open the future. That's what makes him unforgettable. Not the battles he waged as Voldemort, but the quiet steps he took in the halls of Hogwarts, already dreaming of immortality. He didn't roar, he whispered, and the world trembled. Number 23, Horace Slughorn. Of all the many characters who breathe life into the world of Harry Potter, few are as deceptively complex as Horace Slughorn. He enters the story in Half-Blood Prince not with the grandeur of Dumbledore, nor the menace of Snape, but as a curious mix of charm, cowardice, and something oddly likeable. In the books, J.K. Rowling paints him with the brushstrokes of a comic relief figure, a man who hides from danger by transforming into an armchair, who hoards his former students like precious gems, and who seems more concerned with crystallized pineapple than the fate of the wizarding world. And yet, as we dig deeper, there are cracks in the surface that reveal a man burdened by guilt, by memory, and by a fear that he is far more complicit in the rise of darkness than he would ever dare admit. Jim Broadbent, in the film adaptation of Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince, captures this duality in a way that elevates the character beyond what the page alone could offer. From the moment we meet him, hiding in the ransacked Muggle home in Budleigh Babberton, There is a nervousness in his eyes, a twitch in his fingers that suggests a lifetime of running. When he reverts from the form of a worn armchair back into his human self, brushing off the dust from his moustache, there's humour, yes, but also the quiet desperation of a man who knows he cannot hide forever. Slughorn is not a villain. He is not evil. He is, in many ways, the average man placed in extraordinary times, and that perhaps is what makes his story so tragic. He does not seek power for himself. Instead, he craves association with it. He surrounds himself with the brightest, the most talented, the most promising, not out of pure altruism, but because it flatters him, because it builds his own legacy through the achievements of others. He is a social collector, his slug club a gallery of glittering names. He boasts of Gwennog Jones, the Holyhead Harpies captain, and of Barnabas Cuff, editor of the Daily Prophet. He recalls, "I remember when dear Gwennog Jones came to supper. She decapitated a melon with her wand for sport. Marvellous girl, marvellous!" But beneath the laughter and the lavish anecdotes lies a darker truth. The most significant name in his collection, and the one he most desperately wishes to forget, is Tom Riddle. It is in this connection that Horace Slughorn's story transforms from amusing to harrowing. In a small, elegantly worded scene in the book, and an emotionally devastating one in the film, we learn that Slughorn once told a young Tom Riddle about Horcruxes. It was not a lesson he meant to give. It was not evil he wished to teach, but he gave the boy what he needed, and that boy became Lord Voldemort. When Dumbledore shows Harry the altered memory, a foggy scene, staged, evasive, it is clear Slughorn is hiding something. He has not merely forgotten the exchange, he has deliberately erased and rewritten it. He tells Harry in the memory, in a forced voice, "I don't know anything about Horcruxes, and I wouldn't tell you if I did." But Dumbledore knows better, and so does Harry. What follows in the book is a slow unravelling. Harry, under the effects of Felix Felicis, the lucky potion, knows exactly how to reach Slughorn, not by force, but by vulnerability. In the film, this is translated with heartbreaking intimacy. Harry finds Slughorn tending to Aragog, Hagrid's fallen acromantula. There is a bottle of mead, a shared moment of strange mourning, and then, unguarded, the past emerges. Jim Broadbent's monologue in this scene is unforgettable. He speaks of Lily Evans, Harry's mother, with reverence and regret. "She was witty, charming, very brave. They don't make them like that anymore." His voice cracks, and we see something the book only hints at: the deep, personal sorrow that haunts him. "I taught the whole lot, you know," he continues, almost whispering. "I'd like to think I did a good job, but sometimes I think I might have done something terrible." There, in that moment, Slughorn is no longer just a comic figure or a moral coward. He is a man crushed by the weight of his own mistake, a man who gave a monster the tools to become immortal, and who has never forgiven himself. This is the true heart of his character, a heart the film dares to expose in full. In the book, Rowling gives us the facts, the memory, the shame, but on screen Broadbent gives us the tremble of the lip, the distant stare, the shaking hands. His performance renders the scene not just informative, but soul-bearing. He embodies the quiet tragedy of the bystander, the one who did nothing out of fear, and in doing so helped doom the world. Yet Slughorn is also offered redemption. Dumbledore, who understands the nature of guilt better than anyone, tells Harry he is not a bad man, but he has a weak disposition. He prefers to avoid unpleasantness, but he is not immoral. This is crucial. Slughorn is not like the Death Eaters, nor even like those who turned a blind eye. He knows what he did, he has lived with the knowledge, and when given the chance, he chooses to face it. That choice, to give Harry the true memory, to confess the horror of what he once said to a young, brilliant boy with cold, empty eyes, is an act of bravery. Quiet bravery, but bravery nonetheless. Slughorn does not raise a wand in battle. He does not challenge Voldemort. But he faces his past and, in doing so, helps to undo the very evil he unintentionally supported. The irony of Horace Slughorn is that his desire to surround himself with greatness made him blind to the one student he should have feared most. Tom Riddle played him like a piano, flattering his vanity, appealing to his intellect, and Slughorn fell for it. In his own words, he was a charming boy, very talented, yes, but there was something odd about him, a hunger. That hunger, unrecognized or ignored, is what makes Slughorn's guilt so potent. There is a lesson in Slughorn's story, and it is one of moral complexity. The line between good and evil is not always drawn by dramatic acts, but by subtle choices, by what we say, by what we allow, by what we pretend not to see. Slughorn is a mirror for all those who believe themselves innocent simply because they did not participate. But sometimes silence is participation. Despite this, Rowling does not condemn him, nor does the film. Instead, we are asked to understand him, to see that even those who are flawed, who make terrible mistakes, are capable of redemption. Slughorn returns to Hogwarts. He resumes teaching, and in the final battle, he fights alongside McGonagall and Kingsley Shacklebolt against Voldemort himself. He does not run, not this time. In that final war, when the castle is burning and the sky is alight with spells, Slughorn's wand is raised. There is no comedic cowardice left in him. There is only a professor, tired, older, perhaps still afraid, but determined to stand on the right side of history. In doing so, he redeems not only himself but the countless lives affected by the knowledge he once gave away so carelessly. There is a beauty to this arc. Slughorn begins as a man of vanity, of luxury, of memory. He ends as a man of action. His journey is quieter than Harry's, less dramatic than Snape's, but no less human. He is the embodiment of a truth we often forget, that greatness lies not in never falling, but in rising after the fall. When fans speak of the most powerful scenes in Half-Blood Prince, they often point to Dumbledore's death, or the cave, or the cursed necklace. But it is Slughorn's confession, trembling and tear-filled, that lingers longest, because in it we see ourselves, our weaknesses, our regrets, and the hope that it's never too late to do the right thing. In the end, Horace Slughorn is not a footnote in the Harry Potter saga. He is a reminder that knowledge is power, that choices matter, that guilt can be a teacher if we are willing to learn, and that sometimes the most cowardly of men can find the courage to change the course of history. Number 24, Remus Lupin. Of all the characters who entered the world of Harry Potter, few have left such a quiet but profound mark on readers and viewers alike as Remus John Lupin. He is not the loudest, the most powerful, or even the most present figure in the series, but he is one of its most human. A werewolf, a professor, a marauder, a friend, a soldier, and a reluctant father. Lupin is a tapestry of contradictions, stitched together by kindness and sorrow. His presence, both on the page and on the screen, is filled with that rarest kind of magic, empathy. In J.K. Rowling's books, Lupin is first introduced in Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, asleep in a tattered cloak, a bar of chocolate ready in his hand. From that very first appearance, he exudes a quiet strength, a contrast to the more bombastic, magical figures Harry has encountered. His teaching style is simple and effective. His lessons on boggarts, grindylows, and dementors are not only educational, but deeply rooted in compassion. When he instructs Harry in how to repel dementors, it is not with pressure or severity, but patience. "You're not weak, Harry," he says, when Harry doubts himself. "The dementors affect you worse than the others because there are horrors in your past the others don't have." These words, gentle and understanding, summarize Lupin's character perfectly. He is the first adult in the series who sees Harry not just as the boy who lived, but as a boy who has suffered. His approach is always calm, often tinged with melancholy, but never without hope. Yet in the books, especially in later volumes, Lupin becomes a more conflicted figure. In The Half-Blood Prince and The Deathly Hallows, his decisions sometimes seem strange, even frustrating. His temporary decision to abandon Tonks and their unborn child, out of fear of the life he might be condemning them to, casts a shadow over the image readers built of him. Harry himself reacts with fury when Lupin suggests leaving Tonks behind to join Harry, Ron, and Hermione. "You're scared!" Harry shouts at him in the Deathly Hallows. "You're running out on them! You made a commitment!" It's a rare moment of confrontation, and it pierces through the usually gentle demeanour of Remus Lupin. Readers, like Harry, are stunned. This was not the calm, understanding man from third year. This was someone consumed by fear, shame, and a profound lack of self-worth. And yet, it is in this moment of weakness that Lupin's depth is revealed. He is not perfect. He is not infallible. He is a man who carries the weight of his affliction like a shackle, believing himself to be unworthy of love or family. His rejection of happiness is not out of selfishness, but out of a misguided form of protection. It is this complexity that makes him so real. Heroes, after all, are rarely without scars, physical or emotional. David Thewlis, who portrays Lupin in the film adaptations, brings this humanity to life with exceptional grace. In The Prisoner of Azkaban, Thewlis plays him with the soft resignation of a man who has endured decades of quiet suffering. There's a moment when he looks at the Marauder's map, recognizing the names of his old friends: James Potter, Sirius Black, Peter Pettigrew, and his own. His face flickers with memory, loss, and longing. It is not a dramatic scene, but it does more to reveal his grief than pages of dialogue ever could. Thewlis's Lupin is warm without being sentimental. His interactions with Harry are filled with quiet affection. He never overshadows the boy, never imposes himself, yet every word he says carries weight. When he teaches Harry the Patronus charm, an advanced spell far beyond his level, it's not just about magic. It's about giving Harry a tool to fight the darkness, both literal and emotional. Thewlis's line, "Think of something happy, something very happy," is delivered not as a command but a lifeline. The visual language of Lupin's character on screen reinforces his internal conflict. His clothing is threadbare, his posture slightly hunched, his smile always tinged with sadness. Yet he is never pitiable, he is dignified. In contrast to his old friend Sirius, wild-eyed and impulsive, Lupin is grounded, careful, measured. This balance becomes particularly poignant during scenes where the two interact. In Order of the Phoenix, when Sirius recklessly duels Death Eaters, it is Lupin who watches with dread. He knows how this ends. The films soften some of Lupin's harder moments from the books. His departure from Tonks, while still present, is less emphasized, and his inner turmoil remains more implied than explicit. This choice arguably made him even more beloved by audiences. The warmth Thewlis brings to the character made fans cling to him, even as his presence diminished in later films. He felt safe, he felt kind, he felt like a mentor, the way Dumbledore never quite could be. Perhaps that's why his death in the Battle of Hogwarts hit so hard, even if it occurs mostly off-screen. When we see him and Tonks lying side by side, hands almost touching, the grief is visceral. There is no noble speech, no heroic moment, just stillness. Their bodies mirror those of James and Lily, whose own deaths began this saga. It's a quiet, devastating symmetry haunting the old generation gone again, leaving children behind. And yet, Lupin's legacy continues. In the Deathly Hallows, after the final battle, Harry sees their son, Teddy, sleeping in the arms of Andromeda. "I'm godfather to him," Harry tells the others. It's a simple sentence, but it carries the weight of promise. Harry will do for Teddy what Lupin once did for him. The cycle of care continues. Remus Lupin's story is filled with silences, things unsaid, moments unseen, his childhood marked by the trauma of Fenrir Greyback's bite. His years of isolation, denied employment and dignity because of his condition. His time with the Order of the Phoenix, working quietly in the shadows. These are not chapters often explored, but they linger beneath the surface of his every action. His friendship with the other marauders is also a thread of quiet pain. He loses each one, James to Voldemort, Sirius to the Veil, Peter to cowardice. Lupin is the last to fall, and perhaps the one who suffers most. In The Half-Blood Prince, when Tonks pleads with him to love her, he refuses at first. "I am too old for you, too poor, too dangerous." Every word is soaked in shame, but Tonks, defiant and full of love, refuses to let him reject himself. "You see," she cries, "she still wants to marry him, even though he's been bitten. She doesn't care." It is in this love, in Tonks's unwavering belief in him, that Lupin finally allows himself happiness. Their marriage is not dramatic or flashy, but quiet and real. It speaks of two people who have seen too much, lost too much, but still choose to hope. One of the most poignant quotes from The Prisoner of Azkaban comes when Lupin resigns from Hogwarts. "Dumbledore has already risked too much on my behalf. Besides, people like me are not fit to teach in a school." The tragedy is not that the world sees him as unworthy, but that he believes it. The wound society gave him has festered into self-loathing, and yet even in departure he holds his head high. Lupin's character challenges the very idea of monstrosity in the wizarding world. His condition makes him feared and hated, yet he is the kindest man Harry meets. It's a powerful commentary on prejudice, one of Rowling's strongest subtexts. Lupin is a metaphor for those with illnesses, for the marginalized, for anyone made to feel unworthy of love. In a world filled with legends and legends in the making, Remus Lupin is a quiet heartbeat in the background. He is the warmth of a mug of hot chocolate after a Dementor attack. He is the hand on your shoulder when you doubt yourself. He is the voice that tells you gently, "You're not weak." His story is not one of grand destiny or chosen power. It is a story of survival, of endurance, of quiet strength. He teaches defense against the dark arts, but he himself is the embodiment of that defense, not through aggression, but through understanding, compassion, and unyielding empathy. In the end, Lupin's greatness lies not in what he did, but in who he was. A man who loved, who doubted, who stumbled, and who stood back up. In a universe where the strongest spells are often cast with wands, Lupin showed us that the greatest power is sometimes just kindness, and perhaps that is why, years later, we still remember him, not as the werewolf, but as the man who made us feel seen. Number 25. Molly Weasley. In the quiet hum of the burrow, amid the clinking of dishes and the scent of stew bubbling on the stove, Molly Weasley moved like a force of nature. To the outsider, she was warmth personified, the embrace after a nightmare, the knitted jumper on Christmas morning, the scolding that somehow made you feel safer rather than ashamed. But beneath the patchwork apron and flower-dusted hands, there was a lioness. And when that lioness roared, even Death Eaters flinched. Molly Prewett Weasley was no stranger to loss. Her brothers, Gideon and Fabian, had fallen in the First Wizarding War, both members of the original Order of the Phoenix, both brave, both dead. It left a scar in her soul that never quite healed. So when she raised her own children, Bill, Charlie, Percy, Fred, George, Ron, and Ginny, it was with a ferocity born of grief and a love that bordered on religious. She fought to give them a home that was noisy, full, and defiantly alive. In the early pages of Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, Molly appears on platform 934 like a beacon. Now what's the platform number? She mutters to herself, not because she doesn't know, but because she sees a skinny, lost boy with glasses and a lightning bolt scar staring at her children with longing. All you've got to do is walk straight at the barrier between platforms 9 and 10, she says kindly. It's a small moment, but it's the beginning of something monumental, Harry's first taste of motherly affection since Lily's death. Throughout the series, Molly doesn't just cook and clean, she commands. When the children arrive at the burrow in Chamber of Secrets after rescuing Harry with a flying car, Molly's howler to Ron is thunderous. Your father and I are absolutely disgusted. If you put another toe out of line, we'll bring you straight home. And yet, there's a tenderness in the fury, a maternal fear disguised as rage. She disciplines with a heart that's always trembling underneath, beating too fast with worry. By Goblet of Fire, Molly becomes more than just a backdrop. When Harry returns from the graveyard with Cedric Diggory's body, it is Molly, not Dumbledore, not Sirius, who holds him as he sobs. "It wasn't your fault, Harry," she whispers. "It wasn't." Rowling doesn't spend a paragraph explaining her motivations. She doesn't need to. That scene crystallizes Molly's role as Harry's surrogate mother. She knows he's not her son, but she claims him all the same. Her protectiveness doesn't wane with time. In Order of the Phoenix, she is the only one who sees the boggart turn into her dead children, one by one, sprawled lifeless before her. "Ridiculous!" she cries again and again, sobbing, unable to banish the creature. "I see them dead all the time," she confesses to Sirius. "This scene isn't about magic. It's about a woman who carries the weight of a world where children die in wars started by adults." Even her relationship with Hermione shows her complexities. When Rita Skeeter slanders Hermione in Goblet of Fire, Molly is cold and distant, believing the lies. But when she realizes the truth, she envelops Hermione like she does her own daughter. "I suppose I was a bit harsh," she admits, and then makes it right with nothing but a homemade Easter egg and an open heart. In her world, love is practical. A warm plate, a hand on your shoulder, a furious embrace. The films elevate Molly's arc with quiet mastery. Julie Walters captures her essence with a glint in her eye and steel in her voice. She doesn't need wand flourishes or elaborate duels to command the screen. In Half-Blood Prince, as the burrow burns and chaos erupts, it's Molly's scream, guttural and raw, that hits hardest. That sound isn't just fear, it's the sound of a mother watching her sanctuary collapse, but it's in Deathly Hallows, Part 2, where Molly becomes legend. The Battle of Hogwarts is raging, bodies lie on the stone floors. Fred is dead, her son, her precious Fred, gone in an instant. And yet, as Bellatrix Lestrange turns her wand on Ginny, Molly does not crumble, she does not fall, she rises. With a scream that echoed across cinema screens and into Harry Potter history, she shouts, "Not my daughter, you bitch!" Those words have been quoted, memed, analyzed, and yet their power remains undiminished. In that moment, Molly is not just a mother. She is a warrior, a shield, a storm. Bellatrix, twisted, cruel, powerful Bellatrix, doesn't stand a chance. The duel is brief, brutal, and definitive. "You will never touch my children again," Molly might as well have said, and with a flick of her wand, she ends the madness. The books give the moment emotional depth, but the films give it weight. It's not just that Molly kills Bellatrix, it's that she becomes the embodiment of maternal fury. There's something primeval about it. Viewers cheered, readers gasped, feminist scholars wrote essays. And yet, for Molly, it wasn't about power, it was about love. Always love. It's easy to underestimate Molly. She doesn't wield the Elder Wand, she doesn't have a prophecy, she isn't an animagus or a metamorph magus. She's a woman with a cluttered kitchen and a heart big enough to shelter a war. But isn't that magic too? Isn't it magic to keep a family alive in the middle of a crumbling world? To make a home feel safe even when the sky is falling? Fred's death broke her. That's something the story never fully says aloud, but we see it in the way she holds George afterwards, her fingers curled around his wrist like she can still save half of what was lost. In the fandom, theories float about how Molly must have blamed herself. That maybe if she hadn't let them all fight. That maybe if she had kept Fred back. But Molly is too smart for that. She knows that war takes. It always takes